What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. It's been quite the last few days in the fight world. Obviously, the big news on Saturday was the Tank Davis-Lamont Roach fight in Brooklyn, and that ended in quite a bit of controversy. So that was something different. But in any event, I wanted to talk about that. I want to talk about UFC 313. We can go over that fight card. I'm going to get into the Roach Davis controversy, what I think should have happened, what could happen in the future, how things go. So I will get up on that, and we will talk about that, and anything that you guys would like to chat about. So anything if it has to do with combat sports, we will do that. So let me start. Let's talk about the fight on Saturday for the WBA lightweight title in New York at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. I scored the fight 115-113 in favor of Lamont Roach. We talk about close fights all the time, and I think one of the things that's important to talk about here is let's think of those first couple rounds, right? The first round, I think there was 4 total punches landed by the two guys, and I think the second round was 7 total punches. So you're picking a winner, and people are scoring those rounds, and those rounds could go either way. So I think you can have, as a judge, a scorecard that favored Tank. You can have a scorecard that favored Roach, and you're within the realm. Now, here's where things let's talk about the controversy, because I think Lamont Roach really got screwed here. I talked to a lot of people in the fight game today. I made some phone calls to people who know scoring and know how all this should have worked. And everything that happened stemmed from the fact that referee Steve Willis messed up. Now, I wrote this, and you've seen some people talk about this, how when the corner man came up, Calvin Ford came up with the towel, that could have been a disqualification. When Gervonta turned his back on Lamont Roach, that is in the rule books, that could be a disqualification. You're abandoning the fight. But I think when you think about this, everything stems off the referee's missed call. If the referee turns around and he said knockdown and he starts to count, number one, Davis can turn his back and it won't matter because he can go to the corner and get himself. But there should be a mandatory 8 count immediately at that point. That is what should have happened. And had that occurred at that moment, bingo, none of the other problems will have existed. Now, number two, Calvin Ford coming up the steps. That was a failure by the inspector. So for some of you guys who don't know, you see people, men or women, in the corners, and they're wearing a sport coat. Sometimes they're wearing ties, but they always have a sport coat. Those people are inspectors for the commission, and they're looking for violations of the rules and different things. They're the ones that you see when the hands are being wrapped. They're watching the hand wrap. Those people, their job is just to make sure that all the rules are being followed. There is somebody that's sitting out there in the corner with the trainers and the cutmen and everything, whose job it should have been to keep Calvin Ford from climbing up those steps. So that was a mistake there. But that would not have mattered in the least had Steve Willis called the knockdown and begun counting. Then Davis is going to turn around. What probably would have happened, right? Davis would have complained about, hey, that wasn't a knockdown. I took a voluntary knee. And that would have taken control of the situation. But now, how do we score that? Let's forget for a split second that the knockdown occurred. 2 of the 3 judges scored that round for Gervonta Davis. Now, if we put the knockdown in and we take 1 point off, now all of a sudden it becomes it goes the other way. But what you can't do is you cannot call it a 9-9 round, because unless there's a penalty, you can't score a 9-9 round. So now what are your options? Well, I talked to one athletic commission person today who said, unequivocally that is a 10-8 round for Roach. So at that point, it's a 3-point deduction, really, because you're going from 10-9 Davis on 2 of the cards to 10-8 Roach on the cards, and that is a huge change in the scoring. But in either event, no matter how they scored it, Roach deserved to win that fight with the knockdown properly called. And I think that he got screwed. Now, one of the things that I have heard, and this is not confirmed, but New York and almost all other states do their replay a little bit differently than Nevada does because of the infrastructure Nevada has. So Nevada, the commissions are in control of the replay. It's right there. But like in New York, they have to call to the TV truck. And what I was told was that some of the people in the TV truck did not answer the phone when they were understaffed, and they didn't answer the phone when the commission called. And the rule said they can only extend the break, the 1-minute break in between rounds, by 30 seconds. So when that did not occur, when they didn't get an answer from the corner that quickly, by rule, they had to go on. So now the commission is going to probably hold a hearing and discuss it. And we'll see. But Lamont Roach fought a beautiful fight, and he deserved to win. I kind of thought Gervonta took him lightly, and I'll be honest, I took him lightly. I didn't think Roach had a chance to win, but I think Gervonta took him lightly. Probably didn't train all that hard, wasn't all that hyped up for the fight. I think if he fights, if they fight again, and Davis is saying, a bunch of different things, I think, it'll be a different type of fight. So we'll see what goes on here. JP says Lamont Roach won, and he doesn't see any other argument. JP, I love you, brother, but I'm going to have to say I do think that when you look at the early part of that fight, look at the first round, right? You could score it for Roach. I scored it for Roach, but how do you say definitively that he won that first round? I think I don't have the punch stats in front of me, but it was 3-1 where the total punches landed in that first round, and there was nothing that was very big. So, it's hard to score those rounds. And the judges are allowed to score 10-10, but they are discouraged from scoring 10-10. So you should have a 10-10 once a year, maybe, or less. So, given that, you have to understand that they're scoring that round, and it's very difficult, very difficult. Marco said, I thought Tank lost. I agree with you, on that. I mean, I think that you were right on that, Marco. I felt like he had done enough to win the fight, especially in the second half. And I thought he was hurting Davis a few times. I thought you saw Davis, kind of was wobbled and buzzed a little bit there. And I never thought we saw the same thing happen to Lamont. So I really thought that was the case. He didn't mess up. I think Mark's talking about Steve Willis, the referee. He willfully assisted. I don't want to go there. I think you guys know me. I'm willing to speak truth to power if I believe that, but I also know, how things work and with a lot of these people. And I don't think that Steve Willis was sitting there in that moment thinking, I have to protect Gervonta Davis, right? I think he was as confused as anybody else. Imagine if you're in the ring and you're talking about, one of the best fighters in the world in Tank Davis. Where's he ranked? 5 through 10 on most pound for pound list. So you're talking one of the best fighters in the world, and all of a sudden he's going down and walking away. It is confusing, right? It is not easy in that particular situation to say, hey, this is, this should be called a knockdown. So I don't want to say, yeah, I think he willfully assisted, because I think that's really unfair. So anyways, but that's it. But with the scorecards, Roach wins if the knockdown is scored. That is correct, Billy. If he would have scored just 1 point off of that, like we were talking before, but Roach wins it under any circumstance, either a majority decision or a unanimous decision, depending how it comes. But here's why you cannot go back. I don't think the New York Commission can go back now. They are reviewing it, but I think their only option is either to leave it as is or call it a no contest. And what does a no contest do, right? The only thing a no contest does is make Davis's record, instead of being 30-0 and 1, it makes it 30-0 with a no contest. I don't think the no contest really serves a purpose. I think they leave it, they're going to have to leave it like it is because of this reason. If Davis knew there was a knockdown, he's going to fight, or he might fight. You would presume he would fight differently. Hey, I've just been knocked down. I know this fight is close. I just got knocked down. I'm going to lose this round 10-8. He is going to approach the rest of the fight differently, knowing that, automatically he's losing that round. And the fact that he did not have that, I don't think it's fair to now go back and say, well, yeah, you fought the rest of the fight under the assumption that you won that round and that you did well. And now we're going to just tell you we changed it afterwards. I don't think they can do that. So I don't think anything is going to happen. So that's my my take on what will happen there. So anyways, let's see, what else do we have? I'm going to try to get some of these Roach Davis things, and then we'll get into MMA and other boxing questions. Lamont Roach pushed the pace, moved forward consistently, and it landed some big clean punches in the latter half of the fight. I don't disagree with you, Justin. My only argument with you on that is the fact that the first half of the fight, it was terrible, right? It was, I mean, let's be honest. It turned out to be a fairly entertaining fight, right? I think mostly because people thought Roach had no shot, and all of a sudden, he's performing fairly well. But the first part of the fight was just a shitty fight, right? I mean, it was not fun, and they weren't throwing any punches. Nothing was happening. So, I just don't know anything there other than to say that I think whatever you scored those first couple of rounds, let me look at my book. I have my scorebook right here. So there is my scorebook. And I scored, ironically, it starts with a Gervonta Davis fight, Gervonta against Frank Martin. But let's look here. So here we go, Gervonta Davis. So I scored that 1-1. So I gave the first round to Lamont Roach. I gave the second round to Gervonta Davis. And I think you could have any permutation of that, right? And that's where, I think the issue comes up. So I think we have to kind of keep things in perspective. We forget those early rounds that are scored. And remember, the judges are encouraged or discouraged from scoring 10-10 rounds. You see in the UK, 10-10 rounds happen more often, but in the United States, they are very, very strongly discouraged. And I read the New York rules today, and I was reading the rules about scoring. And one of the things that it said there is a 10-10 round is very rare. So, they're telling you right off the bat, they don't want you scoring 10-10 rounds. So just be aware of that. So that, that is where we go. Let's see, what is this? I saw another boxer say she canceled her fight due to her hair being too greasy and burning her eyes, like Davis claimed. Yeah, I did not see that, but that could be. But hey, I tweeted this. In 1964, Muhammad Ali fighting Sonny Liston. He was Cassius Clay then. He wasn't even Muhammad Ali. And something got in his eye in between the fourth and the fifth round. And he goes out, and the Nation of Islam, and they had all their people around Ali's corner. They see Ali. Dundee shoves him out of the corner and says, "Get out there and fight." Ali had something in his eye, and he said, "They're blinding me. They're blinding me." And the members of the Nation of Islam initially thought Angelo Dundee had done something and was up to something and put something in Ali's eye. What did Ali do? He ran around the ring. He avoided Liston for that entire round until his eye cleared up. He went back to the corner. They cleaned his eye. He could see in the next round. And I believe it was in that next round that he actually stopped Sonny Liston. That is the way it's supposed to work. Tank does not get to call a timeout. He chose to put the hair goop in his eye. So he either does like the woman that you suggested do, and he said, I'm going to quit the fight because my eyes are burning and I can't go on, or he has to figure out a way to compete with having that burning sensation in his eye. But you don't get a chance to call a timeout. And I think the fact that, that he did that, he should have lost a point for that, and obviously lost the fight. Hi, Paul, how are you? Good to see you. So let's see what else we got here. So I don't see any more about that. So we will move on to other things that anybody has. So you can ask more questions about that if you want. Let's get into some MMA stuff. UFC 313 is on Saturday. I should tell you, I have interviewed Alex Pereira. I've interviewed Magomed Ankalaev, and today I just did Rafael Fiziev. And those interviews will be going up over the next couple of days. I am scheduled to interview Dana White on Wednesday. My interview with Dana is 1 o'clock Pacific time. And I will get the interview up as soon as I'm done with Dana. But sometimes Dana has stuff go on, and interviews get pushed back a half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever. So be patient with that one. But I do have Dana scheduled for Wednesday. So if you have, I made a post on the community page on YouTube. If you want to have me ask him a question, I'll take a look at what you guys are saying, and if there's any questions, I will ask him and do that. I'll see what we could do. Let's see. With a potential Alex Pereira win this weekend, could you see the UFC doing Jones versus Pereira if Jones pushed them forward, and Aspinall versus Almeida with the winner fighting the winner? I do not see that, Joshua. I do not see that at all. Dana is not big into Pereira doing that. He believes that the heavyweights are bigger and that Pereira is not big enough to fight at heavyweight. I disagree with that. I think he is big enough to fight at heavyweight, but Dana's been pretty consistent, and I know that he believes that Aspinall Jones fight will occur. I think one of the things that's happened, this did not happen when I first got into the reporting business. There was no Twitter, no Instagram, no Facebook, no social media. So at the very least, you had to wait for the next day paper to come out where you would hear rumors of who was going to fight who and what might be happening, right? We didn't have it. And now people are almost in real time talking about what's going on and, wanting updates. And the process, doesn't work that fast. I know Tom put out a statement the other day, that he would be willing to fight any of the top three guys. And, nobody doubts what Tom Aspinall is willing to do. Tom Aspinall is a bad MFer, right? And he's a great fighter. And I have no doubt that he would fight Jones or anybody else. But I think, we got to give Jones a little deference. He deserves time. This is just my guess, but I think that Jones Aspinall will be the main event of UFC 317. I could be 100% off on that, but I'm confident that they're going to get that fight made, and I think it'll be at UFC 317. I did a column a couple weeks ago after Dana did that Instagram live where he was dropping all those, where we talked about Ilia Topuria dropping the featherweight title and all the other fights that he made. I had written a column the next day, and you can find that. It mentions Ilia Topuria on a rocket ship to the top. And I mentioned in there that my prediction for UFC 317, and it's an expensive one, but I think it's possible. Main event, Jones Aspinall. Co-main event, Makhachev versus Oliveira. And then the third fight would be Topuria versus Sarukian. That was kind of my thought on how it might go. So we will see. But if you want to check that piece out, you can go up and click on the MMA tab, and you will see that. Any rumors where UFC is heading in July or August? I have not spoken to Dana in a little bit other than just text here or there, so I have not heard anything. So I'm sorry about that, Patty. I don't have an answer on that one. Let's see, what do we have? That taking a knee and going over to the corner was bizarre. Yeah, that's why I said, Bill, that I criticized the ref. You guys all saw my column. I did a video. I ripped the referee, and I don't usually do that as vehemently as I did it. But, I think it was a mistake. But having said that, it was a nutty situation that none of us have ever seen, right? And so, you got to think Steve Willis is sitting there going, what's going on? What do I do, right? And I just think it was one of those things. And so I'm not so, willing to, as I said earlier, just jump all over him and say things. So let's see what we have. I'm starting to think Chimaev Dricus is going to happen in the fall. I haven't seen any news lately if there was a Saudi card for the summer. I think they can get Chimaev in the States if they want to get him in the States. So we will see what would happen. Certainly Chimaev and DDP would be a fight that they could potentially put on International Fight Week as well. If they don't have Jones and Aspinall done, they could substitute that fight in and then have the other two fights that I said. So I think there's a lot of possibility, that they have going on. They want to make that International Fight Week. That's their Hall of Fame induction. That's their big, they're one of their big big yearly shows. I think they want to make that a really strong, deep card. And so I would not be surprised at all if we saw that come out that way. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, Tank has to stop ducking Shakur. I don't think he's ducking Shakur, Keyshawn, even Loma. Well, let's be fair, JP. So he tried to fight Loma in this fight. And Loma declined. They talked to him, and Loma said he wanted to take time off for whatever reason, and he did not want to fight. So they did reach out to Loma. And Keith Idek, I did not hear this today, but Keith Idek reported that on right after the fight, somebody from Tank's team reached out to somebody from Top Rank looking to see Loma's interest in doing the fight now next. So we will see. We will see on that one. So let's see. Are Chimaev's visa issues figured out yet? Dana seems very quiet about Chimaev. Dana is just quiet about everything right now because he's got so much going on, right? So I don't think Dana's been out doing a lot of media. And Dana's not going to go out there and give play-by-play of little, procedural steps, right? These things all take time. And I don't think they've decided, they haven't heard from Drickus, like when is Drickus healthy and when does Drickus want to fight? There's a lot of things. And I had mentioned on a live we did a couple of weeks ago that I believe there was a personal issue that prevented Chimaev from fighting earlier in the year. And who knows how long, and when that will be out. That is out there. So, I don't think, again, we're getting into the play-by-play of that kind of minutia. When they know they want, let's say they want Chimaev to fight at UFC 317. When they do that, they will apply for a visa for Chimaev to come over to Las Vegas, let's say. And if it gets turned down, they will call President Trump. And that's what they did before. And that's what will happen again. And, Chimaev, I think in that interview with me that he did last year, said if Donald Trump wins the election, I will fight in the U.S. next year. I don't have any reason to doubt that. I think that will happen. Will you explain for the casuals that voluntarily taking a knee is considered a knockdown, like Mayweather versus Hernandez? Yeah, Mayweather touched Mayweather's hand was hurt. So that was, what was that, 2007, 2006, in that time frame there, maybe even 2005, but it was a ways back. And Floyd broke his hand in the tail end of the fight. And the fight was, coming down the last minute maybe, and Floyd put his fist on the ground. That was a knockdown. And what Davis did the other day should have been ruled a knockdown. And it's not, there is no timeout in boxing, right? So you can't just take a knee and have the referee talk to you. Like, think about it. Just for people who are espousing that, fights, conditioning is a big factor in fights, right? So let's say we're in there and, I'm fighting Justin and we're going at it, and we're throwing, and I get tired. Well, I can take a step back, take a knee, and just say, hey, I know I didn't get punched. I just, I had something in my eye. You can't do that because that affects the way the fight's going. You're taking away the other person's ability to win the fight because you're not in the example I'm using, you're not in condition. So yes, it is a knockdown. You take a knee during the fight, it is a knockdown. And that's what should have happened. Let's see. Pereira versus Ankalaev is a huge fight. I think it is too. Ankalaev doesn't have the reputation, right? Number one, he doesn't speak English, and he's Russian, so a lot of people don't relate to him, right? So a lot of people on the Western world don't relate to him. Ankalaev is actually a pretty nice guy. And I think also there's this idea that, because he's from Dagestan, he is just solely a wrestler. But Ankalaev has pretty good kickboxing, right? And so, I think Ankalaev is a guy that, I'm not saying he has better striking than Pereira, but given his threat of wrestling, that increases the quality of his striking. And that's why they call it mixed martial arts. So I do agree with you. I think it's a good fight. It'll be an interesting fight. I'm going to have a pick later in the week on that. I am leaning toward Alex right now. Haven't fully made up my mind, but that's the way I'm going. Let's see, what do we have here? Why do you think kickboxing isn't on the level of boxing and MMA? It's interesting. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think, you know, MMA is, real fighting, right? So you have everything. You can do everything to fight in MMA. And then boxing is like the highest level of striking. So kickboxing comes in and it's kind of in that middle ground, right? And I just don't think, especially in the United States, it's bigger in Europe and bigger in other parts of the world, but in the United States, it's never had that huge fan following for that reason. Like if I want to see the best strikers in the world, the absolute best strikers, I'll watch boxing. If I want to see the best fighters in the world, people that can do it, I'll watch an MMA fight. And then, I'm not saying that I'm not interested in kickboxing, but I think that is kind of in Alden. That's sort of my opinion of where we are going here. Let's see. Can you ask Dana about Chimaev's title fight? I will ask Dana about Chimaev on Wednesday. Believe me, I will do that. I get a lot of questions about Chimaev, so I will definitely do that. So let's see here. Alex Pereira by submission. That is a brave prediction. Alex said to me, I interviewed him. When was it? It was not that long ago. Not the interview that I'm going to be releasing this week. And he said to me, he goes, if I fight Ankalaev and the fight goes to the ground, don't be shocked at how good my ground game is. He has a black belt. I've never really seen him, work for submissions or whatnot. So I don't know how good he is on the ground, but he has a black belt. So, but I think it's the thing that's fascinating about that fight. Ankalaev's striking is made better by his wrestling, and Pereira's grappling is made better by his striking. So I think that's what makes that really interesting. I ran into Paulo Costa at the Arnold convention this weekend. Did you see Arnold himself there? He looked massive, a behemoth brute. He is a big boy. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up to 205 pounds. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of one of those guys. He's in a tough spot, right? He hasn't handled the top middleweights very well. Adesanya, you think of all those middleweights he just lost to Strickland. And so I think, he's kind of in a tough spot because he goes up. I think light heavyweight is even tougher, right? So you go up to that division and boy, oh boy, what's Costa going to do when now he's got on average. I mean, I know I was going to say this and everybody's going to say Adesanya 6'4". The guys are bigger and taller in the light heavyweight division generally than they are in the middleweight division. But yeah, I think Costa, if he moves up, that's going to be a problematic thing for him. So we will see. But man, what some of these guys do cutting weight just blows your mind, I'll tell you. Will they ever UFC ever let you buy a pass to watch all the pay-per-views or buy the pay-per-view in bulk? It's interesting that so you're basically talking about something like NFL Sunday Ticket. I think that's a good idea, right? I'll put that on my list to ask Dana on Wednesday when I talk to him. I had never asked that question. I'll reach out to their Fight Pass people and I'll see what they say about that. If Ant Evans is in here, I know I thought I saw him in here earlier. If Ant Evans is in here, he used to work for Fight Pass. He might be able to jump in and provide an answer, and we can put his answer up why they haven't done that. But I think that would be a fair thing. Now, the one thing Alden and I will say is this: they're not going to do anything until they get a new TV deal. And if they split the deal, then how will that work? So we'll see what goes on. What's up, buddy? Thank you for joining us. Appreciate that. Let's see. If Dana says we are working on it, can you be like, well, there is a visa issue because he doesn't always answer the questions? I would rather Dana just say when he's fighting than keep us guessing. But, I think I know you're a Chimaev fan, and I'm going to end these Chimaev questions if they're on that topic after this. I'll take other Chimaev questions, but let's make it about fighting and not about when he might fight again. We know he's going to come up. At some point, he is going to fight. But it's not as easy to get deals done. There's things going on. As I said, there's things going on in their personal lives, and there's all kind of different things, and it takes two sides. And so Dana's not going to sit here and say, yeah, I'm three-quarters of the way down the road with Chimaev, and then, something happens and Chimaev doesn't fight, and then you guys are all complaining, right? That is one of the things that, they're trying to avoid. So they want to, when they say a fight is done or close to being done, it means they have agreements. And so this, I think this 24/7, 365 world we're in, where everybody wants second by second updates, basically, I don't think he has an answer at a given time. Like when I ask him on Wednesday, maybe he will have talked to Chimaev and DDP's management before that. And then he might be able to say something. But my guess is that he's probably not going to have. And I want to say this, like, I want to ask what you guys want to hear. But when I ask those questions is when you get the worst interviews, right? Because you go, hey, when we have, what Dana will say, because he inevitably says this, is when we have something to announce, we will announce it. And so I think that, you just have to think of, it's not as easy to put all this stuff together like you seem to think it is, right? There's a lot of moving parts that have to, kind of have to be finalized in order to get a fight put together like that. I would like to see Garcia tank too. Garcia was drained in the first fight. You saw the real Ryan versus Haney. He's a savage. I have always liked Ryan Garcia as a fighter. I was critical of him last year, or when was it 2 years ago, or whenever the craziness went on, when he was doing all that nuttiness. But I've always thought he was a talented fighter. And so, I think he has a chance. He did not show well to me against Tank in that fight. If he fought like he did against Devin Haney, I think, that guy, is capable of giving anybody a really, really, really good fight. And so, that is one that, I would say I agree with you on that. I think, that's a fight for Tank that I wouldn't mind. But Ryan is at 147 now, and Tank is at 135. So, what do we do, right? That is an issue. I am going to 314. I think Diego is going to KO Volk and Pat. Whoa, you got Patty subbing Chandler. Okay, well, that's interesting. The main event is a tough one. I probably lean to Volk right now, but that's a tough one. A lot of things that I like about Diego Lopes, and I like Chandler in that fight, and I think Chandler is going to fight with desperation. He always fights with desperation, anyways. But I think he's been losing enough fights. He's got to start wondering when what am I going to do if I just keep losing these fights, right? Because, let me just pull him up just to, like, I don't ever want to get to MMA where we were in boxing. And if a fighter loses a fight, we say, I don't want to see him anymore. That is unfair. It's not good for the business. We don't get to see the best fights when you do that, right? But if Chandler loses, let's say Chandler loses to, Patty Pimblett, like you say, you think that Patty is going to submit him. That would make Chandler 2-5 in the UFC. He will have lost 3 in a row and 5 of his last 6. What do you do with him at that point, right? Do you just keep trotting him out there? Now, they trotted Tony Ferguson out a lot. They trotted BJ Penn out years ago, Nick Diaz, those kind of things. Maybe they will do that. Certainly Michael, when he's on a card, he always gives you his money's worth, but he won't be fighting those top guys anymore. If he loses to Pimblett, who is not in the top 10, he's not going to be fighting top 10 guys anymore, and then he's not going to be making as much money. And I wonder what happens with him at that point. So that's going to be interesting to see. I'm really interesting. So let's see here. What did I think of the Cobb Almanayev fight, in particular, the finishing sequence? I heard a lot of people think it was an eye poke. I don't think there's any question it was an eye poke, in my opinion, right? But it got ruled the way it was. I thought Cobb was on his way to win the fight. So I think the right guy won. I hate to see the way these fights, end like this with these eye pokes. I know the UFC tried with those gloves to come up with a solution. Dana said, we're back. The old gloves are the gloves and we're not switching again. I hope they keep investing and keep looking and see if you can come up with something better. Try somebody else's product if you don't want to develop your own. but I think that that's something, if we could get rid of those eye pokes from this sport, that would make it such a, much better sport and so much more fun. Let's see. Are you a big fan of the Apex event? Saw Mark Shapiro say the president, he doesn't see them expanding to cities much in the future for events due to cost. I did not see that he said that. Dana has been saying the exact opposite, right? I do like the Apex events, but I understand why people don't like. I like the Apex events because I live about 20 minutes from Apex, right? And so it's easy for me to get there and get home, and I'm not on a plane or I'm not, driving somewhere. So I like it. I think the atmosphere, undoubtedly, like look at UFC Seattle and some of these other places, that they've been, where the atmosphere is insane because the UFC hasn't been there in a long time. I did not see Mark say that, so I don't want to say he did or didn't say it, but I know this. Dana has been saying we need to get out to these other cities, and I think it's playing out. Look, they have a fight night in London. There's a lot of fight nights coming up, so I think that's one of the things that we'll see. Huge fan of the channel. Thank you. Any inside UFC news you can whisper to us that might be happening this summer or fall, locations or fights? The only thing I'm going to go back to is what I said before. I am going to stand by my prediction of Jones Aspinall, Oliveira versus Makhachev, and Topuria versus Sarukian for UFC 317. That is going to be my prediction there for that one. Henry got eye poke too, 100%. That is something that, I think, hey, look, Henry, was trying to milk the system, I think. But if you can't see, you can't fight, right? And I think Jason Herzog kind of messed that up. I thought there should have been a point deduction from Song. It was not intentional, but it was a flagrant foul. And I think on a flagrant foul like that ended the fight and left one fighter unable to compete, he deserved to have a point from the other guy for that. And so I thought, I just thought that was a mistake. And I really thought Jason messed that up. And then I also want to say this, and I love Jason. I think Jason's a good guy, and I think he's a terrific referee. He made a mistake by going on Henry Cejudo's podcast. Most of the referees won't even talk to us in the media. They used to do it, and I have a good relationship with almost all of the referees. But, most of the commissions won't let them talk to us now. How in the hell was he on a podcast with a fighter? It's one thing with a reporter that's supposedly neutral, but Jason was on Henry's podcast and they were discussing, the outcome of the fight. And I mean, I just don't understand that. And it was just incredible. Right. And, I mean, it just blew me away. My man, George. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I had George, and I hope you guys follow his podcast, the Zapata Brand podcast. He had a really good interview with Jim Lampley the other day. Brian Campbell on there. He is a terrific guy. Does a terrific podcast. So he's on the East Coast, and he actually has a bagel shop, and he is getting up early to make the bagels for tomorrow. So that is why George could not pop in. What's up, Michael? The Other Side with Mike G. Mike has a podcast, and I think he said to me he's going to have Ernesto Hoost on there as a guest coming up. So if you want to check out The Other Side with Mike G, you can hear what Ernesto Hoost has to say. Let's see here. The three biggest MMA fights I want to see in 2025. Okay, I am going to say number one, Jones versus Aspinall. Number two, Chimaev versus Duplessis. And then number three, well, no, let me flip. I'm going to flip number two and number three. So I'm going to say number two, Makhachev versus Topuria. And then number three, Chimaev versus Duplessis. Those would be the three that I would say. I think if we get all three of those fights this year, it's going to be a good year. What's up, Joe? One thing I would like to ask Dana is to change the UFC heavyweight cap. Baddest man on the planet, but it can only weigh 265. Baddest man with a weight cap. It's crazy. Joe, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. I understand what you're saying, but if we had more fighters that, were athletic and were good, at, that would weigh in at, like, say, 285, I would say, okay, go with it. But as why do people say the heavyweight division sucks? They say the heavyweight division sucks because as you move up in weight, those athletes are playing other sports. They're playing football, they're playing basketball, some of them are playing baseball, some of them are playing hockey, right? So they are doing that. So now, there might be one guy that is great, or there might be five guys that are great at, at 285, say, but there's not enough to have a division. And then you have to replenish it. If you get one guy that loses all the time, otherwise you're going to have the same people fighting. And so, Joe, that's why, like, I understand what you want. You want to see the big, strong guy, and you want to see the crazy knockouts and all that. And I understand it, but there's a reason why they don't have that. And it's just, there's not enough athletes of that size, of the caliber that you would want to see. James here to say, okay, James, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. That is very kind of you to say. Were you at Mayweather McGregor? I was at Mayweather McGregor. Not that I was very fond of that fight, but I was at Mayweather McGregor. So there, let's see. Poeton fights who if he wins? I think it's going to depend on how he wins, right? So let me just pull up the rankings and we'll talk about that. So looking at the rankings right now, Ankalaev is 1. They're fighting on Saturday. Prohaska is 2. He's already beaten Prohaska twice. Blachowicz is 3. He's beaten Blachowicz. Jamal Hill is 4. He's beaten Jamal Hill. Alexander Rakic is 5. Carlos Ulberg is 6. So I don't think there is a clear person to throw in there. I will say this. I think if Blachowicz comes back and fights, say, a Prohaska or a Hill or somebody there, Blachowicz lost a split decision. He thinks he won the fight. I thought Alex won the fight, and Alex also fought that fight with a torn MCL. So I would say, that if Blachowicz gets a fight and wins, then, maybe that makes the argument for him. I find it hard to give Yuri or Jamal a shot right now, given that they've just had shots, they lost, and we just saw Jamal lose his fight in Los Angeles. So I think that it's going to be tough for those guys. So you could go to an Ulberg, you could go to a Rakic. That might be the way they go, or don't discount Khalil Roundtree again. He got knocked out, but that was a really fun, entertaining fight, and people liked it. And I think, if they did it again, I don't think people would be booing and hissing. There's some people that just want to adhere strictly to the rankings, and those people might boo and hiss. But I think for the most part, you're going to get people, going the other direction. So let's see what we go here. Magomed really beat up Jan on the ground, and guess who took down Alex? Jan. Yeah, everybody's different, right? All fights are different. Like I didn't think the Ankalaev Blachowicz fight was very good. I was at the fight, and I didn't think it was that great of a fight. I can't even remember who I had. Right, I don't remember who I had winning that fight, but I just thought Ankalaev, his decision to storm out like he did was a bad one. I didn't think that was the best decision. I understand, they're professional athletes competing at the highest level, and he got frustrated, and I definitely understand that. But I just didn't like that. So, but I think every fight is different, is I guess the big point. You and Joey, MMA Joey, are a good combo. Thank you. Joey is a good guy. I like Joey. Let's see, what do we got here? Did you see that Tony Ferguson is fighting Dylan? Yeah, Joshua is talking about the GFL, and Dylan Dennis is supposed to fight Tony Ferguson in May. I will be shocked if that fight ever happens, or if that league ever puts on a fight card. I just don't see that happening. So we shall see, what happens. So in any event, Hamzat TDP is in Dubai, and Islam Taporia. Well, I mentioned Islam Taporia. They could choose to make it next, but I think that looking at maybe having Ilya fight somebody before he moves up. It's not a guarantee, and a lot of it's going to be who's available again, like I said. But Rizvan, who is one of Islam's managers, he made a point, and he said, why do we have to fight all these featherweights coming up and we don't get the credit for beating them after we beat them? I think, Ilya is maybe a little bit of a different story than what he's talking about. But having said that, I understand his point. And I talked to the UFC specifically about that fight, and they were, so that one can go either way. I think I could see them giving Ilya an immediate shot, saying, "Hey, you're a former champion. You've given up the belt. We're going to move you up." I could see them doing that, but I could very easily just to see them say, "Hey, we got Sarukian who got hurt. He was the number one contender. You beat him, and we'll put you in the title fight." And so, I don't know that is. I would never say that's a done deal yet. So, but we'll see. Is Dricus going to get the Alex fight? He's going to have to win a few more title fights before we get him into the conversation of going up in weight and fighting. He's a freaking big middleweight, so at some point it's going to become he's going to have to move up. But I don't think right now that we are. Let's see, ESPN renewing with UFC, most likely. I think, and I don't know anything, but just putting 2 and 2 together, knowing the facts that I do know, I think they're going to split the baby. So I think ESPN will be back in some form, and probably in big form. But I do think that you'll see them go to a Netflix or an Amazon or something. One of the advantages of being old and having gray hair like I do is that I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of things and heard a lot of things. And I don't travel to all the fight cards like I used to, but I used to be at every one, even the fight nights, right? And I heard Dana say a lot of things. And on the road, maybe 10 years ago, right? He was talking about his dream and Lorenzo Fertitta's dream, the former owner of the UFC, was to have it on one network where everybody can tune into the same place, and bingo, they had it on, right? And that's now what a streaming service allows. And like something like Netflix, now you saw when Tyson fought Jake Paul, what did it have? 65 million streams. Most of those streams were from the United States, but still it was a huge, 65 million streams means there's more than one person in each of those homes watching those fights. So that, I don't know what the exact number came out to, but it was over 100 million people watched that fight. So if you get that kind of power, that's hard not to want to go to it. And Netflix has, over 280, and, maybe they've hit 300 million subscribers, but they were right on the verge of 300 million subscribers last time I looked. So, I think that the deal gets split. Now, do they go Netflix? Do they go Amazon? Do they surprise? Does Google get involved? Does Apple get involved, right? Apple's involved with the MLS, Major League Soccer. That is not like a major league like UFC would be, but still, it's something, and it shows they're interested in sports, and they have that Apple TV Plus. Apple bid for the NFL Sunday ticket very aggressively. They wanted to put that on. So I could see, any one of those getting the deal. So I think it's going to be a decision that's coming, early summer to early fall. I think that would be the time frame to start looking for what they do. But I will keep you up to date on that, because that's a really big topic, and I will be on top of that one. Let's see here. Mike, Magomed struggles with Alex's reach, Poetan by TKO round 4. I could certainly see that. And Alex hits a lot harder than anybody that Magomed has fought. So Rakic is a hard hitter, but I think Alex is even a harder hitter. So I'm sitting there. What's good? I'm still upset Henry got poked in the eyes. I'm upset too, right? I don't want to see anybody get poked in the eyes. I don't want to see the fighters, lose their opportunity, by getting poked in the eye. And sometimes it's really bad where, you can't even fight again when that happens. So to me, that's, I'm with you on that. So I'm not a wrestling person, so we're gonna skip this one. Other than to say, I heard that John Cena did a heel turn, and my man George Zapata from the Zapata Brand podcast was filling me in on that this morning. So I'm not a wrestling person, so I'm gonna just leave that one to the wrestling experts. I was a wrestling fan back in the day when Bruno Sammartino had the title, so that was my wrestling era. So and I did love Bobby the Brain, Freddie Blassie. Those were buddies of mine. I did for a while when I lived in Vermont. There was a morning radio show. These guys were comedy shows. They were really funny, and they used to have me on periodically interviewing. Fred Blassie, right? He used to do like a monthly or bi-weekly, I can't remember when it was, but a segment where he would just talk about, they were called WWWF at the time, and I would interview him. So that was a lot of fun doing that back in the day. But yeah, so let's see. What do we have? Multiple unranked bouts on UFC 12. The unranked fighters seem to be showing up on pay-per-views more. I mean, I think the reason that they're doing that is they're signing a lot of fighters that they get out of the Contender Series that they think are really, really good. And they're putting on a lot of pay-per-view cards. So like they put 14 pay-per-views on a year, and they've got 11 divisions. And then on top of that, so that, like, if you just multiply 11 by 2, that's 22. If the champ makes 2 title fights, right? And then you go 14 by 2, that's 28. So you're missing slots. And then they're putting on some of their big name stars on some of the fight nights, right? Like, Leon Edwards is going to be main eventing in London, and Leon Edwards would look good on a pay-per-view card, but because they're doing these fight night cards in areas outside of Apex, they're building those cards up a little bit more. And so as a result, you lose them. There's just a finite number of fighters, right? There's only a finite number of ranked fighters. And so, I think that's why you see, but I think also the fact that they're doing so well with the Contender Series has a lot to do that as well. Yes, I am on that same seat. The seat is okay. It's just the fact that my chair sits a little bit low compared to where my camera is. And you see I'm down here. So like if I could get up and we go up, I'm up a little bit higher on my screen. But this chair sits a little bit lower. So I'm sitting on 3 freaking pillows, and sometimes the pillows slide on me. Today, not sliding. So I appreciate you thinking about me, buddy. Thank you for that very much. Okay, there's a Mike Chandler fan. We will see you at the top, Andrew. Have we seen the last of Israel Adesanya? He says no, and I will. I have to go by with what he says. I think if he wants to fight again, Hunter Campbell and Dana White love Israel. He'll fight anybody. He's been willing to fight anybody at any time. I think they'll go and they will do that. Chandler said he's only got a few left in him. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he's going to want to make the most of them. So that's what I was saying before. I don't know if you were on before, Pope, when I was saying that I thought we would see Chandler fight with a sense of urgency, because Patty is ranked number 12. And if he, Mauricio Suleiman on WBC. Okay. And no big news. I thought it might have been news. No big news. Chandler, yeah. So, and I was saying that I think if he loses this, that's 5 of 6 losses, right? In his last 5 losses in the last 6 fights. If he loses this one, so I think you're going to see him fight Patty with a sense of urgency. I think he really needs to get it. I did talk about this and said I don't follow wrestling enough to know. I didn't even know John Cena was a good guy, so apologize about that. I've had a couple wrestlers on. You guys didn't seem to be too interested. I did betting pieces. I had Maven Huffman on, and I had Big E on, and they didn't really do that well. So I was disappointed about that. But yeah, I'll try it maybe one more time, but we'll see. If Tank and Shakur, there we go. Now we're getting a good question. If Tank and Shakur ever did fight, who do you think wins? I have said many, many times that I think Shakur Stevenson is the most talented fighter in boxing, or at least has the potential to become the most talented fighter in boxing. I don't think he is fulfilling that potential right now. So if I believe he's the most talented fighter in boxing, I do believe he has the talent to beat Tank Davis. But he is going to have to fight in a way that he has not been comfortable fighting in a long time. You're going to have to fight like Roach did. Lamont Roach stood there in the pocket and he took some punches to deliver his own punches. Now, I thought Lamont fought a brilliant fight, and certainly I think we would see Tank Davis a lot more ready for Shakur Stevenson than he was for Lamont Roach. But having said that, I'm taking nothing away from Lamont Roach. He fought an unbelievable fight. So I would say I would pick Tank because I'm just not sure Shakur would fight the fight that he needed to fight. If he did fight that fight, I think Shakur could win it, but I don't think he will fight that fight. So as a result, I will say I would take Tank. Islam is probably waiting to see if Bilal loses to fight JDM. I also see him pushing for the winner of Justin versus Fiziev. He doesn't seem to be interested in Topuria. I think his lack of interest in Topuria is what I said before, Patty. I think it's only because he's looking at, I fought a lot of featherweights moving up, and I don't want to do it again. So I want to fight lightweights, or, he's getting bigger and he's not going to be able to make 155 much longer. So, I think that's a big issue there. Let's see. iPoke wins 2 weeks in a row. It's becoming a problem. Yeah, no, Andrew, I said that in reference to the Cejudo fight. I wrote it in my column and I said it on this chat. I think Jason Herzog messed up in that fight. And if you don't see it, and you don't call that, you don't call it, that's one thing. So that was Beltran, but with Jason, he saw it. He knew what was going on, and that I think Jason, just messed that up. I just think he messed that up. Let's see. I'm Apex Center royalty. I don't think so, but okay. But thank you for that. Shapiro said that tonight. Yeah, that goes against what that post was referencing was, Shapiro saying that they keep the fights at Apex rather than going around. That goes absolutely 180 degrees opposite of what Dana has said publicly many times and recently. So I would, believe, I think in the hierarchy, if you look on a board, Shapiro, rates above Dana, but I think in actuality of how the UFC is going to be run, Dana will make that call, not Mark. That would be my guess on how it's going to how that will play out. Patty is going to be huge in the cage against Chandler. Remember how much bigger he was than King Green. I think Patty makes it look easy. I could see Patty winning the fight, but I will say this. I don't know that anybody has an easy night with Mike Chandler, because Chandler, the pressure he puts on you, he makes mistakes with that kind of pressure, but you have to be perfect so often, right? You don't have an opportunity to make mistakes against him because he's just in your face and he's swarming you. He's throwing big punches, he's throwing big kicks at you. He's looking to slam, not only take you down, but just slam you. And so, I think that I could see Patty winning the fight, but to say that he's going to make it look easy, I just don't get that one. I just do not think we're going there. So let's see. Okay, somebody not a big fan of Jason Herzog, Jason Yamasaki. Let's see here. What do we got? Man, I thought I was answering a lot of these questions. Look how far behind I am. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. Imagine your top 3 fights all happen in Madison Square Garden later this year. Hey, as long as they happen, I would be into it, right? I mean, I would be into it. That they like having big cards in New York. There's like 4 or 5 cards every year that they really want to stack up, and sometimes those cards, we think on paper they're going to be great, and they don't play out, and then some cards that we don't think are going to be so good do play out, right? And come out better. But yeah, I mean, that would be something. Let's see here. Gaethje versus Fiziev, who do I have? I am leaning toward Rafael in that one. I was surprised. I interviewed Fiziev today, and just before I talked to him here, in fact, I have the odds up in front of me right now. So it actually went down. So there was some money on Gaethje. It was $1.60 before. It's now Fiziev is now minus 148. Gaethje is plus 124. I was a little surprised by that because I kind of thought. Gaethje is the bigger name, the more well-known name. And so, I was a little surprised to see that Fiziev, who hasn't fought in a year and a half, would be not only be a favorite, but be, an 8-5 favorite. That kind of surprised me. So obviously today, since I last saw that, I interviewed, what time did I talk to Fiziev? Around 3:00 Pacific time. So, there's been some money that moved that one down, but I like Fiziev in that fight, but I think it's a fight. And, I looked at Fiziev in his last 6 fights, not counting his last fight because he injured his knee in the fight and couldn't continue in the second round. So it didn't get a natural conclusion. But in the other 6 fights, he won either fight of the night or performance of the night. And Gaethje in 5 of his last 6 did that. So and we saw them fight at UFC 286. I think that's going to be a hellacious fight. And one mistake will decide that one. I kind of lean toward Fiziev on that one, but it could go either way. Let's see. If I could bring back a UFC fighter in their prime to current time, who and what would you want their first fight to be? Well, I would say Chuck Liddell against Alex. That would be, imagine the power in that one. Now, if we could bring Fedor back in his prime, right? Fedor was never a UFC fighter. But if we say, if I can bring back, I'll just use the liberty of saying, let's put him in and let's see prime Fedor versus John Jones and see how that fight would go. So those would be 2 guys that I would say. So anyways, let's see, what do we got here? Some of the same ones. So I'm going, I mentioned this before. Do I think Chandler has a chance against Pimblett? I think that's a close fight. Pimblett, if Pimblett's going to win the fight, he's going to have to, get it to the ground, not get and not get clocked by a really big shot by Mike. Mike wings those big shots, and it's just chaos. Sometimes you're in there, you're trying to duck and dodge, and you're moving your head, and you get hit by something, and that changes the course of the fight. Let's see. Where else are we at here? Avery, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. I hope you are doing good. If UFC came to Netflix, would little kids start hearing about MMA and the sport growing even more mainstream? Yeah, I think for all the growth the UFC has made over the last, 20 years, right? The Ultimate Fighter was in 2005. And here we are now. For all that growth that they have made, there's still a long, long way to go. Like on a global level, it's not even a pimple on soccer's butt, right? In the U.S., it's not nearly what the NFL is. It's not as big as the NBA, and so, yeah, that is, I think if they went to something like Netflix, it's global. But remember, if they go to Netflix, they're going to go off the station. So when other countries they're on, they're going to go off of that channel, right? So it's not like it's just pure addition that they're going to get. They're on TV in all these other countries. So no, maybe Netflix has a broader distribution, or Netflix has more of this and will pay more, and that's why they'll go that route. But I don't know that there's just a direct parallel correlation 1-to-1 if they go on to Netflix that it's going to all of a sudden, start getting that. But I do think that the UFC has really big growth potential. And if they keep moving the way they're moving, I think, we're going to see that. Let's see. Dana is on the board now of Facebook. Yes. Dana helped me out with something on Facebook. I posted during the last crescendo, the fight in Saudi Arabia. It was headlined by Beterbiev Bivol. I wrote stories. There was 6 undercard fights and then the main event. So I wrote 6 news stories on those fights, and then I wrote a column on the main event. And I put the Adames Shiraz story up. And when I went to put the next fight up, I noticed I got a message from Facebook, and it said, "We have taken your post down. It's misleading," or something. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I sent it to Dana. And I said, hey, why did my story get taken down? And I forgot about it. And he sent it to somebody at Facebook, and they said it was mistaken spam filters that run in the background, and it removed it. And he said, and they said the story was put back up. And I looked, and sure enough, and it was back up. So Dana on the board actually helped me 2 weeks ago. So that was pretty funny. How big of a factor do you think Alex leg kicks will play? He's a very good kicker, and how quickly in the rematch? I mean, I think he's going to kick. Ankalaev has had great trouble with kicks in the past. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm going to probably put up my interview with Alex tonight. I'm not 100% certain. I might wait till the morning. But Alex in that interview makes a big point about throwing kicks in the fight. So, assuming that, he is telling the truth and is not just, kind of, trying to get Magomed thinking, I think you're going to see him throw a lot of kicks in the bout. So we'll see there. Let's see. How many rounds would Chandler versus Islam go? I think Chandler getting a title shot would be interesting and insanely unfair to other fighters. Yes, then why are you asking that? I agree with that. Why are you asking that? And Islam would submit him in the first round. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So, we will see. Let's see. They can do events in Sweden. Sweden has Tele2 Arena. It takes 60,000. Hamzat can fight in Sweden. Hamzat can fight in the U.S. I said that before. Hamzat can fight in the U.S. So, so we are going to see, what happens. What's up, Josh? Thank you. Appreciate it. What do we have here? My man, Jeff, best in the biz. How come every time there's a bad decision in boxing, they compare it to Chavez Taylor? What are your thoughts on that? Well, Chavez Taylor was refereed by your friend, Jeff, and my friend, Richard Steele. And Richard, for people who don't know, Chavez entered that fight undefeated. Meldrick Taylor was winning the fight the entire way, had the fight won on the scorecards, got hurt in the latter part of the fight, was in trouble as the 10-second clacker went off, and Richard stopped the fight at 2:58. He would have won the fight had that not occurred, right? So having said that, people got upset at the referee for stopping, but I just think, you're looking at it wrong when you say that. The referee is the person in there, and Richard Steele was one of the great referees of that era and one of the great referees of all time. And Richard saw something in Meldrick Taylor, which, hey, look, Jeff, you know this because you've been around boxing for a long time. Meldrick Taylor was never the same after that. And if Meldrick, God bless his soul, has some problems right now. And I think Richard made the right call. Not a lot of people do, but I think it was just because of the way that played out. Van and Reyes Sorolla. I think if I remember correctly, Van is like -$2, minus $1.90. I kind of like Van to win. I would not bet that fight. I think Sorolla is a live underdog. He might be worth playing. Sometimes when you make a bet, you're not saying that hey, I think this guy's going to win, but you're playing the value proposition, and I think there's value in Sorolla at plus 160 or plus 170, whatever he is, and so that might be the play there. If you force me to say who do I think is going to win, I would say probably Van, but that I think it's enough a fight. I think we have a big enough difference on the odds from what I think to what the odds makers think. So that's where I would say. I think Patty via submission or Chandler decision. Okay, so you're going on both sides of it, bud, huh? Let's see. What do we have here? And what do I have? Are you ready to bet that Bud beats Canelo yet? I will not ever bet against Bud Crawford. I think Crawford is incredible. So I love that. Will I be interviewing Pereira or Ankalaev this week? I did. I had I interviewed Pereira, what was it, Thursday, and I interviewed Ankalaev. I went to his open workout on Friday. He had an open workout here in Las Vegas. Let's see if I can find this on my phone. I will pull this up here. There he is. And there. So there it is. So that interview. So I did interview Ankalaev, and so I will have that up. And I interviewed Fiziev today too. So I have 4 interviews coming up. Alex Pereira. I'm not sure what order I'm going these in. Ankalaev, Rafael Fiziev. I had Gaethje already posted on YouTube, and I'm interviewing Dana White on Wednesday. So that's my schedule as we're going right now. Let's see what's up, Kevin. Subscribe always in MMA Joey's chat. Yeah, I pop into Joey's chat every now and then. Joey, man, he goes on there. Joey puts in the work. He goes on a long time. So let's see here. What fight are you most looking forward to that has been announced? Of all the fights that have been announced, I think Volk and Diego Lopes. I think that's going to be a fun fight. Volk always brings it. Diego, has been so exciting and everything. So I think that would be a fight that I would probably say I like there. Was Gamrot an option? No, I don't think he was ever an option. And he was coming off that performance to Hooker, so I don't think that he was really an option there. Is Olberg favored to beat Jan? Let me see if I have odds on that. Hang on one second. I don't know that I have seen odds on that fight. There's probably odds up on some site. Well, yeah, okay. I just found it. I'm here. What site is this? DraftKings. Olberg is minus 265 over Blachowicz. So, that is going on. Let's see. What else do we have? Do you think Kuniev will be a cheap heavyweight for the top 5 with the win over Blades? I think I tell you what, I think people who don't know Kuniev will be surprised. He is very good. He is very, very good. So I think that he's a guy to watch on Saturday. Let's see. Could Fiziev fight Poirier next with the win over Gaethje? Yeah, I think Gaethje wants to go out with a big name. So I mean, not Gaethje, Poirier. So if Rafael were to beat Justin, I think it would be fair to say at that point that he is a big name and he would be in the mix to fight Dustin in what would probably be Dustin's final fight. Are you guys good? If everybody's good, just give me a thumbs up. I'll keep going as long as people are interested. I'm seeing we still have some folks hanging in there. So appreciate that. Let's see, what else do we have? Any update on the UFC rankings being done on AI? I will be chatting with Dana on Wednesday, and I will ask about that. Where do I see the 154 and 175 divisions going in boxing? Yeah, okay. 2 interesting divisions there. I think we're going to probably end up getting the rubber match between Beterbiev and Bivol. I think that's the fair thing. They fought twice, both majority decisions. The scores were the exact same in both fights. They were good fights both times. So I think the immediate situation is going to be a rematch there, and then we'll have one champion clarified, whether it's Beterbiev or Bivol, and then we'll move forward. I think David Benavidez is the next guy up, but I think if Benavidez does not get the fight, it would not surprise me if he could go jump up to 200 and try to get a cruiserweight title. He had talked about that before. He could always come back down. It's tough to go down, and believe me, I've seen it over the years, guys. Roy Jones admitted that when he went to heavyweight. What was he when he fought John Ruiz? 203, I think he was. When you go back down and you have to go all the way to 175, that's a tough cut. But I would not be surprised, Antonio, if Benavidez does not get the next shot at Dmitry Bivol and they give it to Beterbiev, that he tries to go ahead and get a cruiserweight championship. So that's kind of what I thought there. And in terms of at 154, I'll tell you what, I don't think we're going to see Crawford there anymore. So Fundora's fighting coming up. We got Murtazaliev there. Virgil Ortiz, I thought was sensational over. Um, all of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Israel Madrimov. So, I think Virgil Ortiz is kind of the guy. Bohacek's going to be in the running there. I think there's some good fighters in that division, a lot of talent. So I think there's some good fights that'll come out of that sport there. Let's see. Which country could take over the sport in MMA like the Russians and Brazilians did for the last 20 years? Let's see. What do I say here? How do I answer that? Well, I mean, I would say I think Russia, right, would be the country because I think we're starting to see a lot better Russian striking, and we know they have the great grappling. But I think you're asking me what country other than the ones that have been already established, might do that. And so that is an entirely different question. And I guess my answer to that would be France. MMA is getting, it's still growing in France. I interviewed Faraz Ziam a while back, and he said it was like the second biggest sport behind soccer. I think that's mistaken, but I think France might be the one because they love MMA there. And whenever you have a couple of shows and you have a couple of stars, that gets the young kids to get into it. And once those gyms start opening up and people, get into it, that breeds a lot of talent and competition. So I would say, I think France might be the one if I had to pick a country. Like I don't want to pick a continent, and especially Africa is a pretty damn big place. But I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of talent coming out of Africa now. Not only the guys that have been the champions, but there's other African fighters, in different countries. That's not fair though, because it's a continent, and as I said, a big one at that. Kevin got Dana White privilege, but yeah, no doubt. So that was very funny. They said it was a mistake and it shouldn't have been taken down. So that was it. What do I make about the heavyweight division? Not the Aspinall Jones saga, but the lack of strong contenders, Pinto and Talis looking promising. Yeah, that's what I was saying in answer to the question before about the super heavyweight division, right? If you bring up the heavyweight limit to 285 or whatever limit you want to say. I mean, like, let's just look at the UFC's top 10, okay, underneath John Jones. We all know Jones is going to fight once or maybe twice more. Then you got Aspinall, who's over 30, but, he's still on his way up. I will say that. Cyril Gahn, he's been up and down, and, I don't think Gahn is ever going to be like a superstar in the division. Volkov is getting close to the end. I thought he won that last fight, but he's getting close to the end. Pavlovich, ever since he lost to Aspinall down, I'm not impressed by him. We talked about Curtis Blades before. Curtis has gotten a lot of shots and hasn't come through in his big moments. He's got a really difficult fight coming up Saturday, so I don't know that Curtis is going to be that much. Almeida, I think, has some potential with that jiu-jitsu, but he's small. Spivak, Tabora, Derek Lewis, Tuivasa. So look at that top 10, right? There's just not a lot of big guys. People don't realize that. So why are these other divisions so good? Because most 155-pound athletes are not able to play in the NFL, or they're not able to play in the NBA, or they're not playing, I mean, they might be golfing, they might be playing tennis, right? But there's not a lot of that going on. And so that to me is one of the big issues, right? You just don't have a lot of those people. Vulcan, I appreciate that. Kuniev and Ankalaev for the win. Thank you very much for the contribution. I appreciate that greatly. That is a big help. Let's see here. You would take Bud over Canelo. Best interviews. Thank you. I haven't made up my mind who I would take, but I am saying that I know Crawford is a damn good fighter. When the fight with Spence was announced, and my friend JP is in the chat, and he has asked quite a few questions today. He will tell you the day that fight was announced, I said I like Bud Crawford. I was one of the few that liked Crawford. I'm not saying there was nobody that liked Crawford, but I was one of the few. Buddy, what are you doing over there? Got my dog. All of a sudden, I'm hearing something being chewed, and that's never a good sign. Buddy, what are you doing? Oh boy, I don't know. Lord only knows when I'm going to go downstairs to in a little bit here. So we'll see. But anyways, I think Crawford is just so good, right? He has so much natural talent, and he's got such a great ring IQ that you can't count him out. Canelo is the bigger guy, but did you see the post that Crawford put up on Instagram? He stepped on a scale in his gym and he weighed 186. So he's not that small of a guy, right? He used to be, but he's bigger. So they are good. What else we got here? Best Dana White interviews. Thank you. What question are we talking about here? I'm not sure what question you're talking about, so hit me up with that one again. Let's see. If Chama wins or loses, he calls John Jones. How long till the fight is on? I answered this question earlier. I don't think Dana wants him fighting in heavyweight. I think Dana thinks he's too small. I disagree with that. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see that. I have not heard about Renier de Ridder fighting Bo Nickel. Bo, I know Bo thinks he fought well his last time out. I'm not sure he's ready for somebody like de Ridder right now, based on his performance against kind of a slumping Paul Craig. So, we will go out there. Let's see. Look at this guy. He won't leave me alone with Bud and Crawford. So no, they're not. Canelo has got another fight. Until Canelo wins that fight, we are not making an accurate prediction on that. Raul Rosas' fight is booked against Vince Morales, who just came off a loss. Do you like the slow and steady matchmaking? I do. And so what was I going to say? There was just somebody that we saw I was talking about that kind of dropped down. But I think what you have to remember sometimes is these kids that are young, they haven't had experience either at the pro level or the amateur level. And that is really important. And you got to get that, those fights in. And so I think they have to be careful who you match them with, because it's just like anything else. You put a top prospect in baseball and you have him going out there batting against elite pitchers, and he loses confidence because he's not ready for that yet. If you built him slow and sure, that would be that would be a way to develop. So I think that's why they're doing it, right? They're good. The one thing, give the UFC credit for, they are good at developing guys and matching them the best way. Hunter Campbell, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, they do, all right. So we're going to remove this person. So we will get them down. Why am I acting like a woman? Well, we will see you. Goodbye. Gamron arguably beat Hooker and holds a win over Fiziev. I know, but his win over Fiziev was when Fiziev injured his leg, right? So it was not like he was beating Fiziev in the fight. Well, you asked Dana about Henry asking around a possible lawsuit. I will see how the interview goes. I love you. Okay, thank you very much. I love all of God's children. So I'm happy that you guys have joined me here. Let's see, what do we got? He mentioned both in his interview with Jason Herzog, and I said another time about a possible lawsuit, mentioning doctor not following protocol and some other things. There is no, hey, look, courts have done crazy things. And I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, nor do I want to be one, and I'm not a judge. But I think that's an athletic commission issue. That's the purview of the athletic commission. And I think that, Henry, if he's thinking of filing a lawsuit, that's the wrong way to go. And I don't think you're going to get anything out of that. So we'll see. Let's see, what else do we have here? An African country like Senegal could dominate MMA with the right investment. If you've seen those Senegalese wrestlers, they are monsters. Wasn't Manute Bol from Senegal? Remember Manute Bol, the guy that was 7'7" and played in the NBA? Wasn't he from Senegal? Maybe I'm wrong on that. No, maybe he was from Ivory Coast. Maybe it wasn't Senegal. He might have been from Ivory Coast. Let's see. If MMA had its version of the Four Nations face-off, which four countries would you pick and one fighter to represent each country? So I'm going to have to pick them in all the weight classes. So I don't know if I have enough time because I'm going to have to think about that. But let's see. So if I am doing the Four Nations face-off at heavyweight, John Jones from the United States. So I got to pick four. Let me pick the countries first. That might be the better way to go. So skip that Jones pick for a second. I'm going to say United States, Russia. What would be some other ones there? Georgia. We'll get Georgia in there, right? So we got United States, Russia, Georgia, and then who would be my fourth? I am going to say my fourth would be Brazil. Okay, so let's just name, name one fight here. So since I say John Jones is American, who can I have him now? We're not going to have Jones there since we don't have a fight for him. Okay, we have Georgia and we have Russia. Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. How's that work out? I'm going to go Topuria Makhachev. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks for the question. Let's see. And where are we at here? Do I watch fighters who make YouTube or podcast current? My favorite is Michael Bisping. I don't watch a lot of podcasts, because I read so much. I'm doing so much. So I don't watch a lot of fighter podcasts. I like technology podcasts, so I listen to a lot of technology podcasts. Every now and then, like I listen to that JFK assassination podcast they had. So I heard that, but technology podcasts are my favorite thing. Do I favor Ryan Garcia over Raleigh? If Ryan Garcia does not beat Raleigh Romero, then I'd be shocked. I think yes, Ryan will blow Raleigh Romero away, assuming Ryan is mentally fit to compete that night. Islam is plus 1,000 to be the welterweight champ by the end of the year. Do you think this is because he doesn't move up? Seems like long odds. Yeah, I think it's probably because people, they know that he and Bilal are friends, and so I think that's the reason. I think Islam. If Islam is not the best fighter in the world, he is at worst number 3. I think you can flip a coin and you can say Jones, Pereira, Islam, and Topuria. Put those four in a bag, shake them, and pick their names out of a hat, and that would be who the best fighters are. So I think that is it. So we got a few more here. So Manute Bol is from Sudan. Okay, I'm wrong there. So anyways, I'm going to leave that there. I think I've answered most of those questions. A lot of them are repeats. So we'll do that. So remember, this week I'm going to have Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev, Rafael Fiziev, Dana White. I'm not sure what order. I've interviewed the other 3 already. Dana will be an interview on Wednesday. I will put the Dana interview up right away because I get the most traffic on that. Do me a favor, like this, subscribe to my channel if you don't mind. Go to keviniole.com, check out my content over there. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys could do that. And I hope to see you guys soon. We will enjoy the fights together. Be well, everybody. See ya.